George Miller straightened his tie and took a deep breath as the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open. The room beyond was enormous, with curved walls rising hundreds of feet to a dome that displayed the stars of the Milky Way. Alien representatives from over 200 worlds sat in tiered seats, their quiet conversations creating a background hum that stopped as George entered. "The human representative may approach," announced a melodic voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. George walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. In his hand, he carried a small data crystal containing Earth's formal petition to join the Galactic Council. After centuries of development and 50 years since first contact with this real trade ship that had accidentally discovered Earth, humanity believed it was ready to take its place among the stars. "Ambassador Miller of Earth," he said clearly, stopping at the speaking circle in the center of the chamber, "I bring greetings from President Lawson and the people of Earth." The central podium was occupied by Speaker Zintar, a tall Vosarian with pearlescent skin and six-fingered hands. The Vosarians had been among the founding species of the Council 10,000 years ago. "The Council recognizes Earth's representative," Zintar said, voice cool and formal. "You may present your petition." George placed the data crystal in the receptacle that rose from the floor. Immediately, holographic displays appeared before each council member, showing Earth's application materials. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council," George began, "for the past 50 years, humanity has worked diligently to meet the standards for membership. We have eliminated armed conflict between our nations, unified our planetary government, and reduced our environmental impact by 70%. Our scientists have mastered clean energy and begun the development of off-world colonies. We have adhered to all trading regulations and cultural exchange protocols." He paused, looking around the chamber. Some representatives appeared interested, others bored, and a few, including Zintar, openly hostile. "Earth requests full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." Zintar raised a hand, and the holographic displays vanished. "The Council has reviewed Earth's application extensively. We will now vote." George frowned. This wasn't the procedure he had been briefed on. There should have been questions, a discussion period, even a preliminary assessment. A voting interface appeared before each representative. George watched as they registered their choices. The massive display above Zintar's head showed the results in real time, a rapidly growing red bar representing rejection. When the voting ended, the result was clear: 189 against, 24 for, 8 abstentions. "The petition from Earth is denied," Zintar announced, satisfaction evident in his voice. "On what grounds?" George asked, struggling to keep his composure. "We've met every published requirement." Zintar's mouth formed what might have been a smile on a human face. "The Council has determined that humanity remains too volatile and unpredictable for membership. Your species' violent tendencies are well documented in your own history, and your technological development pattern suggests an unhealthy fixation on weaponry." "That's not fair," George protested. "Every species has a history of conflict. We've moved beyond that." "Have you?" asked a Drell representative from the second tier. "Your media still glorifies violence. Your children play at war. And your resource consumption remains inefficient," added another alien George couldn't identify. Zintar raised a hand for silence. "The decision is final. Earth may reapply in 50 standard years, assuming sufficient cultural evolution has occurred." Two blue-skinned security officers approached George. "This way, please," one said. As they escorted him from the chamber, George heard the whispers. "Primitives. Warmongers. Too dangerous. Not ready." The doors closed behind him with a final sounding thud. His first interstellar diplomatic mission had ended in humiliating failure. Earth had been deemed unworthy of a seat at the galactic table. George's communicator buzzed. It was a message from President Lawson. "What happened?" George took a deep breath and typed his reply. They refused us a seat. On coming home. What he didn't add was the fire he felt building inside him. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The White House Situation Room was silent as George finished his report. President Patricia Lawson sat at the head of the long table, her face showing no emotion. Around her sat the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the heads of major science agencies, and key cabinet members. "So they laughed us out of the room," she said finally. George shook his head. "Not laughed, Madam President. They feared us. I saw it in their eyes, or whatever passed for eyes among the various species. This wasn't about us not meeting standards. This was about keeping us contained." Admiral Frank Norris, a man with gray hair and a face weathered by decades at sea before taking command of Earth's Space Defense Forces, leaned forward. "We've suspected this for some time, Madam President. Our intelligence division has intercepted communications between Council species. They don't like how quickly we adapt their technologies and improve them." He tapped his tablet, and a holographic display appeared above the table showing a graph. "This tracks technological development rates across known species. Humans are the red line." Everyone stared at the sharply rising red line that outpaced every other colored line on the graph. "What's more concerning," continued Norris, "is that we've detected increased Council military presence along the borders of our solar system. They're watching us closely." President Lawson turned to a woman with short brown hair and intense eyes. "Dr. Bradley, what's the status of the Walsh Drive project?" Dr. Susan Bradley, head of Advanced Propulsion Research, straightened in her chair. "We achieved successful test flights last month. The drive is fully functional and exceeds our initial expectations. We can now travel at speeds the Council believes impossible for our level of development." "They don't know we have it?" asked George. "No," said Dr. Bradley. "We've been careful to use only standard drives when Council observers might detect us. The Walsh Drive gives us a significant advantage. We can reach any point in Council space in days rather than weeks or months." President Lawson stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Washington Monument in the distance. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we've reached a turning point in human history. The Council has made it clear they don't want us as equals." She turned back to face the room. "So what do we do about it?" General Jack Warren, a bull of a man with a surprisingly soft voice, spoke up. "We have options, Madam President. We could force the issue militarily. But I don't recommend that. Despite our advances, they still outnumber us significantly." "What about the other species that voted for us?" asked George. "There were 24 who supported Earth's petition." Admiral Norris nodded. "Mostly younger species or those who faced similar discrimination from the Council's founding members. They lack political power but control important resources and territories." Dr. Bradley leaned forward. "And there are dozens more who weren't even allowed to petition for membership. The Council's requirements keep most emerging species dependent on their approval for trade and protection." President Lawson returned to her seat. "So we have potential allies, species who might be interested in an alternative to Council dominance." "An alliance," George said, understanding dawning on his face. "Not just for Earth, but for all species the Council looks down on." "Exactly," said President Lawson. "If they won't give us a seat at their table, we'll build our own." "Admiral Norris, I want a defense plan that utilizes the Walsh Drive's capabilities. Dr. Bradley, prepare a diplomatic package outlining technologies we're willing to share with potential allies." She turned to George. "Ambassador Miller, I'm sending you back out there. Not to the Council this time, but to those 24 worlds that supported us. Feel them out. See who might be interested in a different kind of interstellar community, one based on mutual respect rather than age and tradition." The room filled with a new energy as people began talking and planning. "One more thing," President Lawson said, silencing the room again. "Until further notice, this initiative is classified. The Council doesn't need to know what we're doing until we're ready to show them." "Understood." Around the table, heads nodded in agreement. Earth had been refused a seat. Now they would change the game entirely. Commander Alan West stood on the observation deck, watching workers in spacesuits attach the final armor plates to the massive ship below. The Nevada desert stretched out beyond the transparent walls of the underground facility, but no one outside knew what was happening beneath the sand and rock. "Impressive, isn't she?" asked Dr. Susan Bradley, as she joined him at the window. Alan nodded. The HFY Javelin, first of her kind. The ship was unlike anything humanity had publicly built before. Nearly a mile long, with smooth lines and weapon systems cleverly disguised as scientific equipment. Unlike the diplomatic vessels that Earth had shown to alien observers, this ship incorporated technologies the Council didn't know humans had figured out. "How's the crew training going?" Susan asked. "They're the best Earth has to offer," Alan replied. "Navy, Air Force, Marines, even some civilian specialists. Most have been training in simulators for months, but nothing compares to the real thing." Susan checked her watch. "Your new pilot should be arriving soon." Kate Morgan, top of her class at the academy. As if on cue, the door behind them slid open, and a young woman in a flight uniform walked in. She had short blonde hair and moved with the confident grace of someone comfortable in zero gravity. "Lieutenant Morgan reporting for duty, sir," she said, saluting Alan. "At ease, Lieutenant," Alan said. "Welcome to Project Javelin. Dr. Bradley here will show you the ship's capabilities." Susan gestured to the massive vessel. "The Javelin isn't just a warship, Lieutenant. She's a statement. Everything you see incorporates technology we've reverse-engineered from salvaged alien tech. Some of it came from crashes on Earth over the past century. Some came from what the Council thought were fair trades with us primitives." Kate's eyes widened as she looked at the ship with new understanding. "They have no idea what we can do they?" "No," said Alan with a smile. "They don't." A man with dark hair and round glasses joined them, carrying a tablet. "Commander, the engine tests are complete. All systems green." "Lieutenant Morgan, meet Daniel Hayes, our chief engineer," Alan said. "Daniel knows every bolt and circuit on this ship." Daniel shook Kate's hand. "Nice to meet you, Lieutenant. I hear you'll be flying this beauty." "That's the plan," Kate said. "What can you tell me about her systems?" Daniel's eyes lit up. "The Javelin has integrated defensive systems no other species has combined before. The shield technology is based on Arconian designs, but modified to use less power. The stealth system makes us nearly invisible to standard Council scanners." "And the weapons?" Kate asked. "Officially, we don't have any," Daniel said with a wink. "Just research equipment that might, under certain circumstances, release energy in ways that could be considered offensive." Susan laughed. "What Daniel means is that we've disguised our weapons systems to look like scientific equipment. The Council's observers have seen them during official tours and never guessed their real purpose." Alan's communicator beeped. He checked it and nodded to the others. "The President has given final approval. We launch in 6 hours." "Destination?" asked Kate. "The Arcturus sector," Alan replied. "It's disputed territory. The Council claims it, but they don't patrol it well. Pirates and raiders hit the colonies there regularly, while the Council looks the other way." "Why there?" Daniel asked. Alan's face grew serious. "Because the people being hurt are species the Council doesn't care about. And it's time someone showed them that Earth cares even if the Council doesn't." Susan nodded in agreement. "This isn't just about making a political statement. It's about doing what's right." 6 hours later, deep beneath the Nevada desert, massive doors slid open in the ceiling of the hidden facility. With barely a sound, the HFY Javelin rose into the night sky, its advanced engines glowing softly. Once clear of Earth's atmosphere, it disappeared in a flash of light as the Walsh drive activated. Earth's response to rejection had begun. Not with angry words or threats, but with action. The Javelin was heading to make humanity's new first impression on the galaxy. The ESS Javelin dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Arcturus system. On the bridge, Commander Alan West watched as the main screen displayed the scene ahead. "Tactical report," he ordered. Lieutenant Kate Morgan's fingers moved across her control panel. 3 Draxian raider ships attacking a mining colony on the 4th planet. The colony belongs to the Telerites. No sign of Council security forces. Alan wasn't surprised. The Draxians were known for their brutality, but the Council tolerated them because of their valuable rare mineral trade. The peaceful Telerites, with their small territory and limited military, were considered unimportant. "Life signs on the colony?" Alan asked. "About 200 Telerites," reported the sensor officer. "They've retreated to underground shelters, but the Draxians are cutting through their defenses." Alan stood up. "Battle stations. Lieutenant Morgan, take us in fast. Engineering, keep our signature masked until my command." The crew moved with practiced efficiency as the Javelin accelerated toward the planet. On screens around the bridge, the Draxian ships came into clearer view, bulky vessels with jagged lines and weapons firing at the colony's protective dome. "They haven't seen us yet," Kate reported. "Good," said Alan. "Prepare boarding teams. Lieutenant Russell, you'll lead the ground assault." Joe Russell, a solidly built man with quick eyes, nodded from his station. "Teams ready in launch bays, sir." When they were within striking distance, Alan gave the order. "Drop stealth. Show them who we are." The Javelin systems powered up to full visibility, and the ship's Earth Force insignia lit up on its hull. Almost immediately, the Draxian ships stopped firing on the colony and turned to face the new threat. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. "On screen," Alan ordered. The face that appeared was reptilian, with yellow eyes and scales that shifted color with anger. "This is Captain Vex of the Draxian Merchant Fleet. You are interfering in official business. Withdraw immediately." Alan smiled without warmth. "This is Commander West of the Earth Force ship Javelin. Your official business looks like an attack on peaceful miners to me. You will cease your assault and leave this system." The Draxian laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Humans, the Council rejects you. And now you play protector. You have 1 ship. We have 3. Leave while you can." Alan's smile didn't waver. "You misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation." He cut the transmission and turned to Joe. "Lieutenant Russell, you're up." While the Draxian ships moved to attack the Javelin, 20 small craft launched from its bays. The Draxians, expecting the humans to fight ship to ship as most species did, were unprepared for boarding actions. Joe led his team toward the lead Draxian vessel. Inside their assault craft, 20 Earth Force Marines checked their non-lethal weapons. The Council had strict rules about killing other species, and while Earth was making a statement, they weren't looking to start an interstellar war. "Remember," Joe told his team, "Draxians evolved on a low-gravity world. They're stronger than they look but slower than us. Use that to your advantage." The assault craft latched onto the Draxian ship's hull. Cutting tools made short work of the exterior, and soon the humans were inside. The Draxians, expecting to face the timid Telerites, were shocked by the speed and coordination of the human fighters. Using combat techniques developed in Earth's higher gravity, and with reflexes faster than most species, Joe's team quickly secured the ship's bridge. Similar reports came in from the teams on the other 2 Draxian vessels. Within 30 minutes, all 3 raider ships were under human control. Back on the Javelin, Alan received the report with satisfaction. "Contact the Telerite colony. Tell them they're safe now." When the Telerite leader appeared on screen, his furry face showed a mixture of confusion and relief. "You helped us. Without payment, without demands." "That's right," Alan replied. "Earth believes in protecting those who can't protect themselves." "But the Council said humans were dangerous warmongers," the Telerate said. Alan smiled. Judge us by our actions, not by the Council's words. We'll escort these raiders out of your system and make sure they don't return." As the communication ended, Kate looked over at Alan. "Word of this will spread, won't it?" "That's the plan, Lieutenant," Alan said. "That's exactly the plan." Proxima Station hung in space like a massive wheel, slowly rotating to create artificial gravity. As a neutral trade hub outside Council jurisdiction, it was the perfect meeting place for Ambassador George Miller's mission. George sat at a large round table in a private meeting room. The air smelled of different atmospheres mixing together, and the lighting had been adjusted to a level comfortable for all 5 species present. "Thank you all for coming," George said to the assembled representatives. "Earth appreciates your willingness to hear our proposal." The Tellerite ambassador, his fur neatly groomed for the formal occasion, spoke first. "After what your people did in the Arcturus system, we would be fools not to listen. The Draxians have avoided our colony since then." Next to him, the Novan delegate nodded. Her translucent skin showed the outline of her 3 hearts beating in sync. "When the plague struck our outer world, the Council said it was not worth intervention. Your medical ships arrived within days. You saved thousands of lives. Earth helped because it was right, not because of political gain," George replied. "But now we need to discuss the future. The Council has made it clear they don't want humans or any of your species to have a real voice in galactic affairs." The Brel representative, a short being with 6 arms and compound eyes, chittered softly. "They claim we are too young, too unstable. Yet the Vosarians sit on the Council despite starting 3 regional conflicts in the past century." "The problem," said the Lyran ambassador, her voice melodic even through the translator, "is that we lack the unified strength to challenge the Council's decisions." "Precisely," George agreed, "which is why Earth proposes a new coalition, not to fight the Council, but to create an alternative. A group where all members have equal standing and mutual protection." The 5th representative, a Zentari with scaly skin and a ridge of sensitive spines along his head, leaned forward. "What exactly would this coalition entail, Ambassador Miller?" George activated a holographic display showing a document titled the Proxima Accords. "Equal representation for all member worlds," he explained. "Shared defense obligations, open trade without the Council's excessive tariffs, technology exchange programs, and most importantly, a mutual commitment to peaceful expansion and fair treatment of all sentient beings." "And what does Earth gain from this?" asked the Zentari. "Friends," George said simply. "Allies, trading partners, and yes, a block of influence that even the Council cannot ignore." The Telerites studied the document. "Your ships, would they protect our worlds as they did in Arcturus?" "Yes," George confirmed. "Earth has been developing a fleet, ships with capabilities the Council doesn't know we possess. We would establish joint defense protocols." The 5 representatives looked at each other, having a silent conversation through glances and small gestures. "Show us the full accords," the Novan said finally. For the next 2 hours, they reviewed the details. Questions were asked, clarifications made, and minor adjustments suggested. When they finished, the mood in the room had changed from cautious interest to determined purpose. One by one, they pressed their hands, paws, or appendages to the document scanner, formally signing the Proxima Accords. "So begins the coalition of free worlds," George said as he added his own signature last. "Equal members united in mutual respect." As the meeting concluded, George contacted Earth using a secure channel. President Lawson's face appeared on his private screen. "It's done," he reported. "All 5 have signed. The coalition is real." Her smile was both satisfied and determined. "Excellent work, George. The Council thought rejecting us would keep us isolated and weak. They were wrong." "What's our next step?" George asked. Admiral Norris reports that 17 more species have expressed interest in joining after hearing about our actions in Arcturus and back home. She turned her screen to show a view of a massive shipyard in Earth orbit, where vessels similar to the Javelin were under construction. Production is ahead of schedule. George could see people lining up outside recruitment centers in the background of another screen in the president's office. The coalition will need ambassadors, trade representatives, and more, President Lawson continued. People are volunteering in record numbers. As George ended the call, he looked again at the signed Proxima Accords. What had begun as a response to rejection was becoming something much bigger. Earth hadn't just found a place for itself in the galaxy. It was creating a new vision for what the galaxy could be. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted over each other as reports of the new coalition appeared on their screens. Speaker Zintar banged his ceremonial staff on the floor, trying to restore order. Silence, he finally roared. We will address this situation properly. The room gradually quieted, though tense whispers continued among many delegations. The humans have gone too far, Zintar declared. First, they interfere with authorized Draxian operations. Then they provide restricted medical technology to the Novans. Now they form this rebellion against proper galactic order. An Arconian representative stood up. Tall and dignified with silver-blue skin, she commanded attention without raising her voice. Perhaps, Speaker, we should consider why so many worlds are eager to join this coalition. 22 species have signed their accords already, with more indicating interest daily. Zintar's pearlescent skin flushed with color. Are you defending human actions, Representative Tala? I am suggesting we examine facts rather than react from fear, she replied calmly. These humans have not conquered a single world. They have not destroyed any ships except in direct defense. What they have done is protect mining colonies, cure diseases, and offer fair trade terms. They challenged the Council's authority, Zintar insisted. They fill the void the Council created, Tala countered. I have reports showing that the coalition members requested our help 57 times in the past decade. We denied them in 52 cases. The chamber grew uncomfortably quiet as many representatives shifted in their seats. Meanwhile, in the Sirius system, Admiral Frank Norris stood on the bridge of the EFS Defender, flagship of Earth's growing fleet. 3 more vessels of the Javelin class cruised in formation beside it. Admiral, we're detecting multiple ships entering the system, reported his sensor officer. Council registry, 12 vessels, heavily armed. Norris nodded calmly. Right on schedule. They're here to enforce the blockade. The Council had announced sanctions against all coalition worlds, starting with Sirius II, home to one of the newest coalition members. No ships would be allowed in or out of the system. At least, that was the Council's plan. Open a channel to the Council fleet, Norris ordered. The face of a Vosarian commander appeared on screen. This is Enforcer Krell of the Galactic Council. You are in violation of a legally established blockade. Withdraw your ships immediately. This is Admiral Norris of Earth Force. We are here at the invitation of the Syrian government, a sovereign member of the Coalition of Free Worlds. Your blockade has no legal standing in Coalition space. Krell's expression hardened. We outnumber you 3-1, Admiral. Do not test the Council's resolve. Norris smiled slightly. Numbers aren't everything, Enforcer. I suggest you scan our ships more carefully. As the Vosarian ordered his crew to conduct detailed scans, his eyes widened. The human vessels had defensive and propulsion systems that shouldn't have been possible for their level of development. One last chance to withdraw peacefully, Norris offered. Krell's pride won out over his caution. Advance and prepare to disable the human vessels, he ordered his fleet. All ships activate Walsh Drive for tactical jumps, Norris commanded. What happened next astonished the Council forces. The 4 Earth ships vanished in flashes of light, only to reappear seconds later in completely different positions, behind, above, and beside the Council vessels. The Walsh Drive gave them unprecedented tactical advantage, allowing them to jump instantly to new coordinates even within a solar system, something Council technology couldn't match. For the next 10 minutes, the Earth ships conducted a carefully choreographed dance around the Council fleet, appearing and disappearing faster than the Council vessels could target them. Not a single shot was fired, but the message was clear. If this had been a real battle, the Council ships would have been defenseless. Finally, Norris reopened the channel to a visibly shaken Enforcer Krell. As you can see, conflict would be pointless. Take this message back to the Council. The Coalition's sovereignty will be respected. We don't want war, but we won't be bullied either. As the Council fleet retreated from the system, the citizens of Sirius II, watching from their homes, erupted in cheers. Across Coalition space, the news spread rapidly. Earth had stood up to the Council, and won without firing a shot. Alarms blared throughout Earth's Moon Base Alpha as Director Linda Crawford rushed to the control center. Red warning lights flashed on every console, and the main screen showed multiple ships approaching rapidly. "Report," Linda ordered as she entered the room. 23 vessels just appeared at the edge of our sensor range," replied the operations officer. "They're moving fast and not responding to hails. Configuration matches Vosarian warships." Linda's stomach tightened. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Coalition and Council were still in a tense standoff, but no direct attacks had occurred. "Alert Earth Defense Command," she said, "and get me a secure line to the Javelin." "Communications are being jammed," the officer responded. "We can't reach Earth or any of our ships." Linda looked around the room at the frightened faces of her staff. Moonbase Alpha was primarily a research facility. It housed nearly 2,000 people, mostly scientists and their families, with only a small security force. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. 17 minutes at current speed." Linda took a deep breath. "Implement Emergency Protocol Sierra. Get all civilians to the emergency shelters, security teams to defensive positions." As her orders were carried out, Linda reviewed their options. The base had some defensive capabilities, but nothing that could stand against a full Vosarian attack force. They needed help, but with communications blocked, they were on their own. "Director," called out a young engineer named Paul Fisher, "I think I can break through the jamming. It won't be enough for a full message, but maybe a distress signal." "Do it," Linda said immediately. Paul rushed to a workstation and began reconfiguring equipment, connecting devices that weren't meant to work together. Linda watched as civilians were efficiently moved to underground shelters, while security personnel distributed the limited weapons they had. "Dr. Martin," Linda called to a physicist passing by, "could we repurpose the particle accelerator as a defensive weapon?" The scientist looked startled. "It's not designed for that, but the magnetic containment field could potentially be modified to disrupt their shields." "Get a team on it," Linda ordered. All across the base, researchers began turning their scientific equipment into makeshift defenses. Geologists reprogrammed mining lasers. Astronomers redirected powerful telescopes to focus solar energy as heat weapons. Chemists mixed compounds that could be used as explosives. "Distress signal away," Paul announced just as the first Vosarian ships entered lunar orbit. Aboard the Galactic Council Moderate's ship, Representative Tala received an urgent message. A junior officer handed her a data tablet. "The rogue Vosarian faction has launched an attack on the human moon base," the officer reported. "Speaker Zintar claims no knowledge of the operation." Tala's eyes narrowed. "He's lying. This is his doing, but he wants deniability." She made a quick decision. "Send this information to the Coalition immediately, along with the attack force's shield frequencies and weapon configurations." On the moon base, the first shots from the Vosarian ships struck the outer domes. Emergency force fields activated, but they wouldn't hold for long. "They're targeting life support and power generation," reported the security chief. "This isn't a capture mission. They're trying to kill everyone." Linda's face hardened. "Keep the civilians safe. We'll hold as long as we can." Just as the situation seemed hopeless, Paul shouted from his console. "Incoming message. It's from a council ship. The message contained detailed technical data about the attacking vessels, information that would be crucial for defense. "Get this to all sections," Linda ordered. "Recalibrate our defenses using this data." With the new information, the base's makeshift weapons began to have an effect. Dr. Martin's modified particle accelerator disrupted the shields of the lead Vosarian ship. Mining lasers, now properly tuned, cut through the suddenly vulnerable hull. Then, just as the moon base's power reserves neared depletion, space seemed to fold in on itself as 5 ships appeared in brilliant flashes of light. The ESS Javelin led the Earth fleet, with Commander Alan West on the bridge. "All ships, target the Vosarian vessels," he ordered. "Protect the moon base at all costs." The battle was fierce but brief. The Earth ships, using both their advanced technology and the intelligence provided by the Council moderates, quickly gained the upper hand. 3 Vosarian ships were disabled, 2 destroyed, and the rest retreated. When it was over, Commander West contacted the moon base. "Director Crawford, are you all right?" Linda looked around at her battered but unbowed team. "We held, Commander. Not a single civilian lost. We captured the Vosarian flagship intact," West reported. "You won't believe what we found in their databanks. Detailed plans for a genocide against humans and all coalition species, and orders signed by Speaker Zintar himself." Linda's expression was grim but determined. "The Council can't ignore this. Not anymore." 3 years after Earth's rejection from the Galactic Council, Ambassador George Miller once again walked through the massive doors of the Council chamber. This time, however, he didn't come as a petitioner. The chamber looked different now. The old tiered seating had been replaced with a circular arrangement where no position was higher than any other. Many familiar faces were missing, including former Speaker Zintar, who had been removed from power and faced trial for his actions against Earth and the Coalition. George took his place at one of the speaking platforms, alongside representatives from 27 other Coalition species. Across from them sat the remaining Council members, led by Representative Tala, now serving as acting Speaker. "This special session of the Galactic Assembly is now in session," Tala announced, using the new name that had replaced Galactic Council in the recent reforms. The past 3 years had transformed the political landscape of the galaxy. After the attack on Moon Base Alpha and the discovery of Zintar's genocide plans, moderate council members had allied with the Coalition to force major changes. The old power structure had crumbled as more species demanded equal representation. "We are here to finalize the new Galactic Charter," Tala continued. "Ambassador Miller, as the representative of Earth and a founding member of the Coalition, would you present the terms?" George stepped forward. "Thank you, Acting Speaker. The Coalition proposes a completely new framework for galactic governance, not merely seats at the old table, but a new table entirely." He activated a holographic display showing the charter document. "Under this agreement, all spacefaring species will have equal representation based on merit rather than age or military power. Decision-making will require broader consensus, not just the agreement of a few ancient worlds." The Arconian representative nodded in approval, while some of the older council species looked uncomfortable but resigned. "Furthermore," George continued, "we propose relocating the Galactic Assembly to a neutral location. Earth and Coalition engineers have constructed a new station in unclaimed space between our territories. It features a circular chamber where no species sits at the head, because there is no head of the table anymore." Images appeared showing a massive space station unlike anything seen before. Its design incorporated elements from dozens of cultures, creating something truly representative of galactic diversity. "The old council claimed humanity was too violent, too unpredictable," George said. "Yet when faced with rejection, we didn't start a war. We built alliances. When attacked, we captured rather than destroyed. When victorious, we offered reform rather than revenge." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from both former Council worlds and Coalition members. "Earth didn't just want a seat at your table. We wanted a better table." one where every voice matters. After discussion and final amendments, the vote was taken. The new charter passed with overwhelming support. Later, as George stood with President Lawson on the observation deck of the new Galactic Assembly Station, they watched ships from dozens of worlds docking at the massive structure. "When you returned from that first meeting, I never imagined we'd end up here," Patricia said. "We just wanted to be treated fairly." George smiled. Sometimes rejection leads to something better than acceptance would have. If they had given us that seat 3 years ago, we'd just be one voice among many in their system. Now we've helped create something genuinely new. Below them, the main assembly chamber was being prepared for its first official session. The circular design meant every representative could see every other representative directly. No hierarchy, no elevated positions, no back seats. "They refused us a seat," Patricia said, "so we built a round table where everyone sits as equals. And in doing so, we proved we deserved to be here all along," George added. As representatives from over 200 worlds began filing into the new chamber, George noted how many nodded respectfully toward the Earth delegation. The species that had once been dismissed as primitives and warmongers had demonstrated a different kind of strength, the ability to unite rather than conquer, to reform rather than destroy. Earth hadn't just found its place in the galaxy. It had helped reshape the galaxy itself.